قد أذنت لك فدخل علي عليه السلام تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد. ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتا يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بدأتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ برسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيد اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن آداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. فقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان سماواتي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال من جبرائيل عليه السلام يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيتي نبوة ومعدن رسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها بعضها وبنوها. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال جبرائيل عليه السلام يا رب أتأذن لي أن أحبط الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط عميل جبرائيل عليه السلام وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك وعزتي بجلالي إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرض مهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذني لن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله؟ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل عليه السلام وأنا تحت الكساء. اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجهم. فقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. فقال علي عليه السلام لأبي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله والذي نبعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكرنا خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرق وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله هما ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غما ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة. فقال علي عليه السلام إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيئتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة رب الكعبة. اللهم صل على
मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। न भूल कर भी कभी तुम किसी की बात करो, न भूल कर भी कभी तुम किसी की बात करो, हाली का जिक्र करो, बस अली की बात करो, न भूल कर किसी का नफ्स किसी का वसी, किसी का कफी, किसी का नफ्स किसी का वसी, किसी का कफी, ये सब सिफात हों जिसमें उसी की बात करो, अली का जिक्र करो, बस अली की बात करो, न भूल कर है वक्त नज़र का बाली पे आए हैं मौला, है वक्त नज़र का बाली पे आए हैं मौला, अरे कहाँ की मौत बस अब जिंदगी की बात करो, अरे अली का जिक्र करो, बस अली की बात करो, न भूल कर फरिश्तों कैसा सवालो जवाब तुर्बत में, फरिश्तों कैसा सवालो जवाब तुर्बत में, अब आ गए हो तो बैठो अली की बात करो, अरे अली का जिक्र करो, बस अली की बात करो, न भूल कर वो बात एक है कुछ फर्क ही नहीं मिलता, वो बात एक है कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता, खुदा की बात करो या अली की बात करो, खुदा की बात करो या अली की बात करो, अली का जिक्र करो बस अली की बात करो न भूल कर लहद में मेरी अंधेरा हो गैर मुमकिन है लहद में मेरी अंधेरा हो गैर मुमकिन है जहाँ अली हो वहीं रोशनी की बात करो और अली का जिक्र करो बस अली की बात करो न भूल कर भी कभी तुम किसी की बात करो नारे हैदरी
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलवात अकबर अकबर कहती थी माहून भरी मई याद से लिपट गए हाय अली अकबर हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माहून बड़ी मई याद से लिपट गए हाय अली अकबर हाय अली अकबर अरमान तपह नांगी पाशा किशानी अफसोस के राज आई ना तुझे कोई जवानी कैसा था मुकद्दर हाय अली अकबर हाय अली अकबर कहती थी माखून भरी मई याद से लिपट गए हाय अली अकबर हाय अली अकबर अरमान तपहर नांगी पशाक्षहानी अफसोस के राज आई ना तुझको जवानी कैसा था मुकद्दर हाय अली अकबर हाय अली अकबर नारे तकबीर नारे रिसालत नारे हैदरी 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 बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत
पर हबीब खुदा खत्म नारे
मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद नारे सलवात। एक बार और आवाज़ से बुलंद नारे सलवात। गुज़रे मंज़िले तस्लीम व रज़ा मुश्किल है। गुज़रे मंज़िले तस्लीम व रज़ा मुश्किल है। सहल है इश्क़ बशर, इश्क़ खुदा मुश्किल है। सहल है इश्क़ बशर, इश्क़ खुदा मुश्किल है। और जिनके रुतबे हैं सिवा उनको सिवा मुश्किल है। वादा आसान है, वादे की वफा मुश्किल है। ये फ़क़त आम्र हुआ फ़ातिमा के जानी से, मुश्किलें जितनी पड़ी काटी सब आसानी से। गुज़रे मंज़िले नारे सलवात। एक बार और बाबा से बुलंद नारे सलवात। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक शीशों में भर कर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक शीशों में भर कर ले गए। अरे ले गए आंसू खुदा जाने के गौहर ले गए आंसू खुदा जाने के गौहर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक और हम इसी दर के गदा हैं, हम इसी दर के फ़क़ीर, भीख जिस दर से फरिश्ते आके अक्सर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक और देर से पहुँचे दरे शाहे नजफ पर हम फ़क़ीर, अरे देर से पहुँचे दरे शाहे नजफ पर हम फ़क़ीर। एक ओहदा था ग़ुलामी, वो भी कंबर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक और दोपहर में एक तन पर अरे जख्म खाए सैकड़ों, एक दिल पर दाग शाहे दी 72 ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक और बुग़्ज़ क्या था आशिक़िया को, फ़ातिमा के लाल से हाय बुग़्ज़ क्या था आशिक़िया को, फ़ातिमा के लाल से कुछ नहीं तो झोलियों में भर के पत्थर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक संग दिल थे क्या उन्हें दर्द यतीमी का कलक, अरे कान से बाली सकीना के जो गौहर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक अरे सफ़हाए किरतास पर चलते लरज़ता है कलम, आबिदे बीमार को ताशाम क्यों कर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक शीशों में भर कर ले गए आंसू खुदा जाने के गौहर ले गए। मजलिसों से कुछ मलक फातिहा। पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद नारे सलावत। मौलाना शब-ए-शहादत इमाम ज़ैन-उल-आबिदीन की मुनासिबत से मरसिए के 2 या 4 बंद। एक बार मिलकर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद पर बुलंद आवाज़ में दुरूद पढ़िए। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद। जब आबिद बेकस को पाया मैं अजलाया, जब आबिद बेकस को पाया मैं अजलाया, दुनियाए दगाबाज की नीयत में बलाया। अरे वो जहर दिया जिससे सुकून में खला लाया, और मानिंदे हसन कट के कले जाने कलाया, मानिंदे हसन कट के कले जाने कलाया। जालिम ने मरीज़े शहे दिलगीर को मारा, अरे शब्बर की तरह दिल बरेशा बीर को मारा, शब्बर की तरह दिल बरेशा बीर को मारा। मौला दे पयंबर पे मुसीबत का ये दिल है, प्यासे के आज़ादार की रह लत का ये दिल है, और मजलूम के दिल बर की शहादत का ये दिल है। आशूर के बाद और मुसीबत का ये दिल है, आशूर के बाद और मुसीबत का ये दिल है। अरे इस गम से जिगर चाक है ज़हरा नबी का, उठता है अज़ादार हुसैन इब्ने अली का, उठता है अज़ादार हुसैन इब्ने अली का, और वो जहर से दम आबिद बे कस का ओखरना, सज्जादे दिल अफ़गार का बाक़िर से बिछड़ना, और बिगड़ी हुई तक़दीर गरीबों की बिगड़ना, और उजड़ा हुआ घर फातिमा ज़हरा का उजड़ना, अरे उजड़ा हुआ घर फातिमा ज़हरा का उजड़ना, वीरा हुआ दरबार वली इब्ने वली का, बुझता है चराग आज हुसैन इब्ने अली का, बुझता है चराग आज हुसैन इब्ने अली का। और वो निस्फ शब और राज़ी तक़दीर का सजदा, नूरे नज़रे कुश्ताए शमशीर का सजदा। अरे पैगामे अजल था के वो दिल गिर का सजदा, जिस तरह के आशूर को शबीर का सजदा, जिस तरह के आशूर को शबीर का सजदा। उठे जो मुसल्ले से तो गश कर गए साजा, हाय हाय मेरे बाबा कहा और मर गए साजा। उठे जो मुसल्ले से तो गश कर गए साजाद, हाय हाय मेरे बाबा कहा और मर गए साजाद। जब आबिद बेकस को पाया मैं अजल आया,
अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अज़मल्लाहु अजूरना व अजूरुकुम बिमुसाबिना बिल अली इब्न हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम सलावत। जैसे कि आपके इल्म में है, अंजुमन गमखान अब्बास की जानिब से 2 रोज़ा मजालिस का इंतज़ाम है, जिसकी आज पहली मजलिस शब शहादत हज़रत इमाम अली इब्न हुसैन बाद मजलिस शबीए ताबूत इमाम सज्जाद की ज़ियारत है। मजलिस का सिलसिला जारी और सारी लेकर कल हफ्ते को हर साल की तरह बाद नमाज मगरिबैन इसी तरह बास में शब गिरिया का इंतज़ाम है, जिसमें काफ़ी शहरों से दीगर अज़ादार की शिरकत है। और मुझे यकीन है कि हर साल की तरह इस साल भी हमारी कम्युनिटी इन मौला के अज़ादारों को, हमारे मेहमानों को बेहतर से बेहतर मिलेंगे। और इस वीकेंड के आखिर में इतवार को इंशाअल्लाह एटलांटा का 23वां सालाना जुलूस की इंतज़ाम है। और आप सबसे गुजारिश है कि जितना भी हो सके तो कारपूलिंग का ऑप्शन पहला ऑप्शन रखें, because there are several events that are planned for the weekend, so we highly advise that. Our visiting scholar for this weekend's Majalis series is Moulana Bilal Hussain. Just quick history on Sheikh Bilal. Sheikh Bilal is born and raised in New York. He went to complete his studies, undergraduate studies at Temple University. He studied at the Hawza in Najaf and now serves as an alim to the Al-Mahdi Center community in Long Island. He also is the director of the Zahra Trust, a charity that's focused on humanitarian relief in Iraq, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and really all over the globe, wherever Mu'mineen are in need. We pray, inshallah, Bibi Fatima keeps showering her blessings upon you, and you keep the message of Imam Hussain alive in the hearts. और बिना कोई और ताकीद बस एक मिसरा आपकी ज़हमतों को तमाम किया और मौला कायनात के हवाले बस ये एक शेर और इस साल काफ़ी वायरल भी गया है, तो आप लोग ने यकीनन सुना होगा कि कहा खुदा ने हमें देकर हैदर सा निगहबान, कहा खुदा ने देकर हमें हैदर सा निगहबान, फ़बअय्या आलाए रब्बिकुमा तुकज़्ज़िबान। कहा खुदा ने हमें देकर हैदर सा निगहबान, फ़बअय्या आलाए रब्बिकुमा तुकज़्ज़िबान। दिल में बुग़्ज़ अली और जन्नत का जुनून, दिल में बुग़्ज़ अली और जन्नत का जुनून, इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। Shmar. And with that, I'll ask Moulana Bilal Hussain to be Zib member with your loud salawat.
رحم الله من يقرأ سورة الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، واللعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your final salawat is condolence to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المصائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating and remembering the Messiah of Ali Muhammad. Tonight's majlis and tomorrow's majlis is intended for our youth, but under the focus of this ayah. This ayah, or this excerpt of the ayah that we began our discussion with, is from Surah Ash-Shura, the 42nd surah of the Holy Quran, and the 23rd verse, in which after when our Prophet left the city of Makkah and came to the city of Medina, the people of Medina became very thankful to him that you gave us hidayah, you gave us guidance, you taught us Islam, you taught us how to get closer to Allah, you gave our life purpose. So they said, "O Prophet of Allah, you've done so much for us. We want to thank you. We want to give you some reward. We'll take care of your expenses. We'll take care of your families. We'll take care of all of your needs for what you've given us." Our Prophet never spoke to the people of his own choice. Always it was what Allah told him to say. مَا يُنْطِقُ عَنِ الْحَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Allah declared in the Quran that our Prophet, this Prophet of mine, never speaks of his own choice. Anything that he says is that what I have dictated for him to say. So in the same way that when these people of Medina came to our Holy Prophet and they said, "We want to reward you, we want to thank you," the Prophet didn't answer from himself, rather Allah sent this revelation. قُل, say to them, Ya Rasulullah, لا أسألكم عليه أجرا, that I don't want any reward from you. إلا المودة في القربى, that say to these people that I don't want any reward from you except that you have mawaddat for my family.
Now, let me explain this before we go further. There are some interesting things that are present in this statement that Allah made. First and foremost, every Nabi that came, every nation wanted to thank the Prophet, and whenever they would want to thank the Prophet would say, La as'alukum alayhi ajran inna ajri ala Allah. That Allah will give me my ajr, I don't want anything from you. The exception to that rule of 124,000 Anbiya was our Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Rahmatul lil alameen. Sayyidul Anbiya is the one who gave a different answer. Meaning what he guided them to was better than what all of the other Anbiya could have offered them. So he guided them and he said that I want you to love my family. Now in the Arabic language, as is true in many languages, for example, a word or a concept that is important has many words in that language. For example, in the language of the Eskimos, they say the word for ice has many words for ice. Because they live in the snow. So there's always ice. So there's many ways of describing ice. The Arabic language is a poetic language. The Arabic culture is a culture of bravery, which is why there are many words for bravery and there are many words for love. Allah chose a very particular word to describe the love that He wants us to have with Ahlul Bayt. The other side of this is He became very specific about who He wanted us to love as well. The first point of love, that Allah chose the word mawaddat. Till today, if you go and you do a Google Translate or you look up an Arabic dictionary and you look up the word mawaddat, it is a crazy kind of love. A love of junoon. That Allah said to the Prophet, tell these people to have a love of junoon with your family. The description that many of our ulama have given, and I translate this for English for those of us who have heard it in Urdu know it very well, is that how do you explain what is this love that we should have for Ahlul Bayt? And the description comes that the love that you should have for Ahlul Bayt is like the love that a fish has for water. For our children. This is for the youth, so for our children, right? What is the love that a fish has for water? One, you take the fish out of water, it dies. But it goes further than that. Take that fish out of water, chop it up, cook it, eat it. The love that the fish has for water becomes such that it makes you thirsty from its love for water. This is the love, this is the extent of the love that Allah wants us to have for the family of the Prophet. Allah chose this word, we didn't choose this word. Prophet didn't choose this word. The other side is qurba, for my near relatives. This discussion about who is Ahlul Bayt, who is included in Ahlul Bayt, what does it mean when we talk about Ahlul Bayt? There are a variety of different opinions about what this phrase means, but Ahlul Bayt and Qurba specifically refers to those family members that are from your children and your lineage. Wives are never included in this. Let me explain. In the Arab tradition, when you would get married, you wouldn't take your husband's name. Look at the wife of Abu Talib. She's the wife of Abu Talib, but she's Fatima bint Asad. The relationship is always with the family that you were born to, not with the family you married into. Why? Because there are things like divorce. There are things like getting remarried. So the wives were never included in those people that you have to love with mawaddat. The only ones who are included in the ones that you have to love with mawaddat are the ones that are attached to a person through their family in a way that they can never be separated. The easiest way to understand this, we don't have to guess who is Ahl al-Qurba. Allah told us, إن حاجكم فيه بعد ما جاءك من العلم فقل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم. Meaning we don't have to guess who is qurba. Allah gave us ayah mubahila in Surah Al Imran in verse 61 where He clearly said, who are the family of the Prophet? They are the only ones that when Rasulullah says, abna'ana, that they will be included. When He says nisa'ana, they will be included. That is Imam Hassan, Imam Hussain, Sayyida Zahra. And finally, the greatest honor of Ali ibn Abi Talib is that when Allah says anfusana, He means Rasulullah and Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. From amongst these Ahl al-Kisa, from amongst them are the ones that we have to love dearly. And in Ahl al-Kisa, there weren't simply 5 that were present. All of the sons of Zahra are mentioned in Hadith al-Kisa as people of the cloak. Why? Because Allah, when He makes a statement, Hum Fatima, wa abuha, wa ba'luha, wa banuha. You see, in the Arabic language, there is singular, there is dual, and there is plural. When Allah says banuha, He uses the sigha of plural. If it had only meant that Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain are included, Allah then used the wrong word. So meaning that included in Ahl al-Kisa are all of the sons of Zahra. And that includes all of the A'imma from Imam al-Hasan till Imam al-Qa'im al-Muntadhar. So this is our obligation that Allah has laid out in the Quran. That love these Ahl al-Kisa. Love these qurba and love them in such a way that it is a love of junoon. Love them in such a way that their value to you is greater than your value to yourself. So therefore, to love these personalities, one of the important things that we have to do is we have to know these personalities. We have to spend the time to educate ourselves. Who were they? What did they do? What made them special? What makes me love them if I know their example? How do I appreciate the beauty of the example if I don't know them? So tonight, briefly, while we can't encompass the entire exhaustive biography, we'll mention some of the points of the biography of our 4th Imam, Ali ibn al-Hussain, Sayyid al-Sajideen, Zain-Ul-Abideen. In the focus of this biography and understanding this personality, we begin with his birth that begins in the year 38 after Hijrah, according to most narrations. In some narrations, it goes as far back as 35, but essentially between 35 and 38 after Hijrah is the birth of our 4th Imam. His mother is known as Shahrabanu. The secret of the birth of our Imam, there is a secret in his birth as well too, of how the mu'ashara, how the environment and the community of the Arab was being changed. You see, the tradition of the Arab was that they only had children with Arabs to keep the Arab lineage pure. But our Prophet had started the practice of wanting to change this habit and to incorporate and remove this idea that the culture of the Arab, the culture of any one people, had superiority. So even amongst his family, amongst his companions, he started the process of marrying them off to people who were outside of Arab. For example, Zayd ibn Harith, who was raised in his house and was a servant in his own house, was married, who even though he was not an Arab, was married to the daughter of his aunt, his own cousin. He took other examples, which, for example, we talk about Jawairib, who was one of the Ahl al-Sufaha, one of the poorest people, and was married to one of the most beautiful women in Mecca at that time, in Medina at that time. In the same concept, the Ahlul Bayt kept this tradition going to break this concept of superiority of Arab over non-Arab. So which is why, after one of the victories of the Muslimin over the people of Persia, the king of the time, his daughter, when she was captured with the people, Imam Ali said that no, this daughter will come to my house and she will be given honor and dignity, and he married her to his son Imam Hussain. And that was Shahraban. In some narrations her name is Shah Zanan. Shah Zanan translating to Queen of the Women. However, it's narrated in some discussions that says that Imam Ali is the one who said no, Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alamin is Fatimatu Zahra. So this will be Shahrabanu, she will be a princess, but that title is reserved for Sayyidah Fatima. Ali. Ya Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahu Akbar. Ya Rasulullah. Ya Ali. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's one like the grandson of the Prophet would marry from non-Arab and have from her a son, was a way in which the entire community and society was learning and being taught that there is no superiority, that your nasl should only come from the Arab. That it was beginning this process of change. The Ahlul Bayt collectively promoted this change, which is why after our sixth Imam we see all of the mothers coming from non-Arab backgrounds so as to introduce into society and break this concept of racism and racial superiority. But the first of the examples of this was presented in our fourth Imam. That he was born to a mother who was not an Arab, to demonstrate and to show that there is no superiority of the Arab over anyone else. That the magnificence of character and behavior and tarbiyah was not tied to the lineage of the Arab, but rather to the lineage of those who were attached to the knowledge of Islam. The mother of our fourth Imam passes away after the time of birth, and he is raised through a nursemaid, and that has another story to it. There's one other point of significance that's associated with the birth of our Imam that talks about which was bigger, which was older, Ali al-Akbar or Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen. Now, historically speaking, there's some debate on this matter. Why? And I'll explain to you. That those dates that are recorded with the birth of Ali al-Akbar are in the year 33 Hijrah or 32 after Hijrah, and Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen is recorded 38. They even look at the laqab and they say, well, his laqab is Akbar, the big one, the oldest one. So therefore they say that maybe there's some possibility that he was the elder. Some people have this opinion and in some cultures. However, overwhelmingly, what's narrated and believed that the oldest of the sons was this Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen, and the second son was Ali al-Akbar. His title of Akbar was given to him after his Shahadat. The same way, for example, some people say, and it's one of the arguments in history, that the title of Abul Fadl as-Saqqa, the one who would quench the thirst, was given to him after his Shahadat because of the greatness and azamat of his sacrifice in going to seek water for the family of Imam Hussain. So they say that the title of Akbar was given to this Ali, the second son, after the time of Shahadat because the two sons of Imam Hussain who were named Ali that were shaheed on that day, one was Asghar, the other was Akbar. The aspect that supports this argument to say that Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen was the oldest and Ali al-Akbar was the second son, one of the aspects that supports this argument is the idea of having children. And Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen in the field of Karbala had children. Ali al-Akbar has no children that are recorded in history. So the argument, you may hear this, and it's okay. People can debate history. History is to be studied and learned, but it doesn't affect any way the azamat of the sacrifice of Ali al-Akbar, nor does it sacrifice the greatness of the status of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen alayhi salam. I mean, history is to be debated, that's okay. Does it make a difference to us? No. Doesn't change anything. In this aspect, we see that the first 3 years of the life of our fourth Imam are spent in the company of his grandfather, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. The argument presents itself that amongst the A'immah, there was none that was more like Ali ibn Abi Talib than this Zain-Ul-Abideen. One of the arguments in discussion presents and says that Imam Hussain, whenever he would have sons, would say, these are the ni'mah of Allah, and we don't keep the ni'mah of Allah, we give it away. So the sons of Imam Hussain have a special relationship, if you notice, in the family of Ahlul Bayt. And the argument presents itself that when this Ali ibn al-Hussain was born, Imam Hussain said, this is a ni'mah from Allah. We, the Ahlul Bayt, sacrifice our ni'mah. He took this son of his and placed him in front of the grave of Rasulullah, and the one who picked him up was Imam Ali. And the tarbiyah of Zain-Ul-Abideen began from Imam Ali, and which is why we say the similarity between Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen and Imam Ali is so close that the tarbiyah of his life begins in the hands of Imam Ali. This is the same reason that they say that there was that close bond between Ali al-Akbar and Sayyidah Zainab. That when this Akbar was born, Imam Hussain says, this is the bounty of Allah that is given to us. We give bounty away. And it was Sayyidah Zainab who took this child and raised him. That we say that that proximity was between the two of them. And this way we see the first 3 years of his life in the hands of his grandfather in the city of Kufa. And after the Shahadat of Imam Ali, he returns back to the city of Medina. And the next 10 years are spent under the authority and imamat of our second Imam, Imam Hassan ibn Ali al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. During this time, and then the next 10 years, we see under the authority of his father, and at the age of 23, we see that he takes the position of imamat, and the focal point of his life is in the event of Karbala. But during this 23-year period of time, after the return to the city of Medina, one of the things that's known is that this imam began the process of teaching in Masjid al-Nabawi. And he was known from his young age to be both a scholar, a pious man, and an educator of the religion of Islam. That if one had questions, they knew that Ali ibn al-Hussein was the person to ask for assistance. The flux point that we say, or the point of inflection in the life of this imam is Waqi'a Karbala. That the events of Karbala, his life can be split into two sections, the 23 years before the event of Karbala and the approximately 35 years after the event of Karbala. The role of the imam in Karbala is often discussed to be understood and say that why did the imam not fight in Karbala? There are a variety of different discussions and opinions on this topic and discussion. But what we say is that Allah wanted this imam to be present in Karbala, which we know he was. But he wanted him to live through the experience of Karbala. The only way that could happen is if the imam was ma'dhur, excused from fighting. You see, the authority of Allah on this earth, if he calls for assistance, it becomes mandatory on every capable human being to answer that call. Which is why, for example, we see Imam Hussein before the event of Karbala telling people that if you don't intend to help us, then don't be present in the field of Karbala. Leave this place so that you don't hear our call. If today we were to have a discussion and ask the question that, let's say, for our youth, because it's a point of education, why does every member, if the army of Umar Asad had 30,000 people in it, if it had 30,000 people, there were those who also didn't want to fight, but they were forced to be. Why is Allah going to punish them? Allah is going to punish every single member of that army, because when the imam raised the call, is there anyone to help us? Even if they weren't supporting Umar Asad, they didn't come to the nusrat of Imam Hussein. The exception becomes our fourth imam because of his sickness. That sickness that physically prevented him from being able to help made him excused from having to fight and ensured that the remainder of Rasulullah stayed on this earth. That there was no other way for the imam to be present in Karbala and not answer the call of Imam Hussein. So this was the specific miracle of Allah, that this imam entered a state of sickness that was impossible for him to be in the support of the imam. To where the argument comes and presents itself that on the day of Ashura, when our imam did call out, "Ala hal min nasirin yansurna, ala hal min mughithin yughithuna," that they said that from the tent, Sayyidus Sajideen came out leaning on a staff and dragging a sword, and it was Imam Hussein who calls out, "O Kulthum, return him, lest the remainder of Rasulullah be removed from this earth." That this intention of this sickness had a purpose, that there would be this imam present, to be present and witness this event and to teach the society. Yet the only way that could happen was through this process of illness. Otherwise, it was the obligation for him to fight the way his brothers, his cousins, his uncles fought. But Allah wanted this message to be preserved in this fashion, and therefore this sickness takes place that keeps the imam from fighting, yet the imam is the witness and the teacher of the Waqi'a of Karbala. After this is a question of what happens in the 35 years after the event of Karbala. And this is a very interesting part, and this is where the imam rebuilds the religion of Islam. Today, if we are Muslim, it is because of the effort of this imam to preserve the religion. Let me explain. You guys okay? More history? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I'll know your... Ya Ali. I'll know to finish when the answer stops coming. Otherwise, we'll keep talking. Mal'un Yazid was Khalifa for 3 years. 3 years was his Khilafat. And in 3 years, he committed atrocities that no one had committed before. In his first year, he was responsible for the murder of the grandson of the Prophet and for the looting of the family of Rasulullah. The second year of his Khilafat, he's responsible for what's called Waqi'a Harra, which is the sacking and the abuse of the city of Medina. And the third year of his Khilafat, he's responsible for the destruction of the Kaaba. That he laid siege to the city of Kaaba, shot cannons at it, and destroyed the Kaaba in his life. These are the 3 things he did in 3 years of his Khilafat, after which he's dead. What happens? The first year we know the Waqi'a of Karbala and Mal'un Yazid and what he did to the family, we know. What happens? Yazid Mal'un tries to win over the companions and the close relatives and the people of the city of Medina and try and think that he's a nice guy. So he starts this process of taking the nobility from the city of Medina, inviting them to Sham to come and sit with him. And there's one person by the name of Abdullah ibn Hanzala, or Hanzala, depending upon the accent. Abdullah ibn Hanzala, his father was one of the great companions of our Holy Prophet. Hanzala is known as Man Ghasalahul Malaika. The story of Hanzala is this, that Hanzala loved the Holy Prophet, was a good person. He woke up one morning and he was on his way to do ghusl janab. And he heard the call to war. And he, without doing his ghusl, ran to the battlefield in support of Rasulullah and was killed in that battlefield. To where Rasulullah says, Hanzala is that one that the malaika are doing his ghusl in Jannah for him. Abdullah ibn Hanzala was from that family of loving of Ahlul Bayt and caring for Ahlul Bayt and wanting to be attached to the Prophet and his family. When Mal'un Yazid decided to bring this Abdullah to the city of Sham and to introduce him and try to bribe him and win him over, Abdullah goes. He sees what's there. He sees this Yazid. He sees all of these characteristics and he comes back to the city of Medina and he says to the people of Medina that after what I've seen there, it is wajib on us to fight this man. It is wajib on us to kill this man. So Abdullah ibn Hanzala gathers the companions and the people and sacks the city of Medina itself, kicks out Marwan ibn Hakam Mal'un from the city, and he takes control of the city. And he digs a trench around it to keep out Yazid, and he says, well, from here we'll raise an army and we're going to go and we're going to sack and kill this Yazid. In the meanwhile, Yazid, hearing this, sends one of the worst people that exist on this earth, Muslim ibn Uqba, with an army of between 5,000 and 10,000 soldiers to take back the city of Medina. The son of Marwan is the one who gives them instruction on how to bypass all of the defenses and to take and to sack the city. And Muslim ibn Uqba, sure enough, sacks the city of Medina, bypasses the defenses, and he is given permission by Yazid Mal'un that for 3 days, everything is halal for you. You can do anything you want to these people. You can do whatever you want to do with them. And this Muslim ibn Uqba kills over 70 of the companions of our Holy Prophet, including all of those who are present in the Battle of Badr at this point are killed. He kills over 700 of the Hafiz of Quran in the city. He goes and they say that the year after this event, 1,000 illegitimate children were born in the city of Medina. To the extent where they said that the horses and the donkeys were tied inside of Masjid al-Nabawi and there was filth everywhere. That he completely sacked the city, and by the end of it, what he had done is he took anyone and everyone who was alive and said that the only reason that you will stay alive is if you agree to be the slave of Yazid, otherwise I will kill you. And he does atrocities in the city that wipe out the history of knowing Rasulullah in the city of Medina. The third year is where we see the sacking of the city of Makkah, where Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who was contesting the authority of Yazid, was based in the city of Makkah, and sure enough Yazid lays siege to the city, sacks the city, destroys the Kaaba, and after this Yazid is gone. What happens after this is that amongst the Banu Umayyah there is an argument, and this Marwan ibn Hakam is the one who becomes the Khalifa. Understand something. If you want to see how frightening this history is and how backwards this Banu Umayyah was, Marwan ibn Hakam, for those who know, in his lifetime, was someone who was banned from the city of Medina by Rasulullah himself. Meaning that Rasulullah said that this mal'oon is one who curses and abuses the Muslimin. He's not allowed in the city of Medina, and he kicks him out of the city of Medina. Now that same mal'oon, the Banu Umayyah, take and make the Khalifa of Muslimin. So Marwan is someone who destroys the religion of Islam, reduces the sanctity of everything that is valued in Islam, and so does his family after him. This is the religion, this is the community that our fourth Imam inherits. That all of the history is gone. All of the lovers of Ahlul Bayt have been wiped out. All of the leaders have been killed. All the lovers of the Quran have been removed. This is where Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen begins the process of rebuilding. Reintroducing what is Islam. Teaching what is this faith. Now the consequence of the Banu Umayyah taking such a hard hand and destroying everything that was loved about Islam was that their goal was that the true message of Islam should die. To the extent where this Marwan ibn Hakam, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, his son, when he becomes the Khalifa, he makes his right hand a man by the name of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. And this Hajjaj furthers the goal of destroying and removing any mention of Islam. We know of some of the atrocities he committed in Kufa, but he went even further. When he saw people, for example, would go to Masjid al-Nabawi and walk around the grave of Rasulullah and spend time at the grave of Rasulullah, Hajjaj Mal'oon, under the orders of Abdul Malik, started teaching the people and saying, it is better for you than you ask this prophet that the Amir is alive, go do tawaf of his palace and go ask him and Allah will grant you. What was the goal? To remove the love of Ahlul Bayt. The city of Medina, by removing its pious people, they had changed into a city that they wanted to make into a contemporary city that is enjoyed by people and seen as a metropolis of types. So they tried to make the city of Medina famous for singing. That people would travel to the city of Medina to learn to sing, and it was a city that was famed for, na'uzubillah, the singing that would be done in that environment. And it was so bad that even those who call themselves the ulama of the religion were in some aspect experts of the singing and music and things of that nature in that time. When we look at the life of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen, there are those who will argue and say, what did the Imam do? The Imam gave us Islam back. That he took an environment that was completely destroyed and removed of the mention of Allah and love of Ahlul Bayt and love of the religion of Islam, and brought us back to the true faith that needed to exist. When the city of Medina became overcome with this singing, when they had made the mention and shown that nothing is sacred in the religion of Islam, that we will kill even those who are with the Prophet, we will break the Kaaba, the Imam is not able to speak up openly because the consequence of that would be the removal of the hujjah of Allah on this earth. So what does the Imam do? He teaches through dua. He stops speaking to people and begins speaking to Allah. That if it is that you want to talk about singing, then come and approach Allah through the beauty of this dua and supplication. The du'as of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen are something that is incomparable, that they describe about 50 years ago when there was a conversation between Al-Azhar University and the city of Najaf. One of the ulama of Al-Azhar writes and says, he says, I understand most of your A'immah, but I don't understand this Ali ibn al-Hussain. Why did you make him an Imam? Imagining that is our discretion that we made him Imam. One of the ulama of the city of Najaf simply takes this Sahifa Sajadiyah and mails it to this cleric of Al-Azhar University. After some time, this alim writes back and he says, I did not know who is Allah until I read the du'as of Zain-Ul-Abideen. Today, if we know who is Allah, it is by the wasila of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen that we know who is Allah. In those 35 years, these du'as that were taught, this Sahifa Sajadiyah that we all have, the munajat of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen that we possess, the du'a of Abu Hamza al-Thumali, the teaching of akhlaq that the Imam took as a responsibility. Not only did he recite Risalat al-Hukuk, he showed people the character of Ahlul Bayt. There's a story that isn't told very often about our fourth Imam. Everybody still awake? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's said that our Imam would go to Hajj many times. The Hajj of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen is famous. But the way that he went to Hajj is famous as well. That our Imam would never go to Hajj with people that he knew. He would find a kafilah where nobody knew him. Now, it wasn't like today that everybody has pictures and have their phone and you can look at somebody's Instagram and figure out who they are. If you didn't know the Imam, you didn't know the Imam. And the Imam would intentionally pick people that didn't know him. And he would go with them and he said, Bashart, on the condition I will travel with you, that you allow me to serve the Hujjaj. And Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen would anonymously go with these people and serve the Hujjaj. And at one point in time, as they're traveling, they meet another caravan at one of these rest areas, and one of the members of that caravan recognizes Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen. And he says to his caravan, to those caravan, he says, "Oh people, have you no shame?" They said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You have the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib serving you." The people come to the Imam, kissing his hands and feet and asking for his forgiveness and saying, "Ya Rasulullah, you would have made us the denizens of hell. If we made any mistake with you, how would we answer this to Allah?" The Imam would say, "Do you not know that Allah likes to see his Hujjaj served, and Ali ibn al-Hussain wants to be one who serves the Hujjaj?" If you were to look at the character of akhlaq that the Imam is teaching, what is the Imam? What are the Hujjaj? But look at the status that the Imam teaches through this behavior and mannerism. That he goes through the process of educating people about how they should behave with each other. He writes Risalat al-Huquq, right? The treatises of rights that teaches every relationship has an obligation. And you have an obligation to everyone in your life. 1 point from Risalat al-Huquq. It's not too late, we're okay? All right, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When our Imam in Risalat al-Huquq makes a point of loving and respecting your mother, he makes a statement to prove this. He says, "Your mother gave you the fruit of her heart that no one gives to anyone." Now we know what that means. Now. You see, the process of expecting a child is very different in human beings than all of the other existences in this world. Everything else that has children, the mother controls the resources of the child. The mother has the right to terminate the pregnancy, delay the pregnancy. She chooses to take care of herself first and then her offspring. Except in the case of human beings. That in human beings, the infant that's in the womb takes control of all of the mother's resources. That infant controls the hormones, controls the food, controls everything. When we talk about, for example, postpartum, all of these things that go on with women afterwards, it's because the child literally had control of all of the mother's resources and took from the mother whatever it wanted, and the mother had no control over this entire process. This is what Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen means when he says, your mother gave you the fruit of her heart. She gave you control of everything that was in her to bring you to life. That you wouldn't live today if that mother didn't give you everything that was inside of her at your discretion to come into existence. The depth of the meaning of what Imam is explaining in this treatises of rights and teaching us the relationships and the rights and obligations, maybe some of it now we can understand. But the Imam laid out the fundamentals through all of these, that when people, he couldn't direct them individually and speak to them because of the austerity placed on him by the government. The Imam turned through other means to educate and to change the entire society. If we talk about, for example, the teaching and the madaris of our 5th Imam and our 6th Imam, the beginning of those schools that Imam Baqir taught through, that Imam Sadiq taught through, are in the hands of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussain Zain-Ul-Abideen alayhi salam. And that Imam rebuilt the foundations. That when these Mal'oon of Banu Umayyah killed off all of the people who knew what the faith of Islam was, it was Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen who stood in the middle of this desert and began the process of rebuilding, teaching this religion, teaching the akhlaq, teaching the love of Quran, teaching the love of Allah, that these were all gone. Today, if it exists, It is by the effort of that Imam that, in spite of the fact that he was not allowed to speak and to teach publicly, he still changed the world. The greatest tool of teaching that he had, the greatest lesson that he taught, was the message of Karbala. For 35 years, this Imam wept, to the extent where he's known as one of the Bakkaun, one of the criers. Al-Bakkaun fi tarikh al-alam khamsa. That in the history of the world there are 5 who would cry. But the weeping of Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen was never about him. It was about showing and teaching the people of what happened in Karbala. Today, we can't imagine a world without the mention of Karbala. But look at the facts in history. That how is it that till today, if it's not by the assistance of Allah, that less than 100 people in the middle of a desert, are overcome in less than a day by an army of 30,000. Yet today there are millions who are crying for that army of less than 100. How does that happen? It's that Imam's effort. That his weeping was about teaching this lesson in history. That there were 5 who would cry in the history of this world. The first of them was Adam. That Adam, when he was separated from the mercy of Allah and sent down to this earth, he wept. And he wept profusely until Allah gave him maghfirah. If you want to know the dua that was used by Adam to receive his maghfirah, when you go to Masjid Kufa, may Allah give us all tawfiq, there is the maqam of Adam alayhi salam. In it, we recite the dua at that location. Ya Allah, بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين. The forgiveness of Adam was by the wasila of Ahlul Bayt. There are 2 narrations. One that says that Jibreel, when he saw Adam crying for years, that he came and he said, "Oh Adam, ask Allah by the wasila of these 5. The other narration says that when Adam asked by the wasila of these 5, Jibreel was sent, "Oh Jibreel, ask him where did he learn this?" And Adam will tell you that when Noor came to my eyes and I looked at the throne of Allah, I saw these names written on the arsh of Allah. So I knew that if I ask Allah by the right of these 5, my dua would be answered. Ya Ali. The second of the 5 criers was Yaqub, who lost one son. And he wept so much, مَبْيَضَّتْ عَيْنَاهُ, that he lost his sight from weeping over Yaqub. The third of these criers was Yusuf. That when he was oppressed and put into prison, the prisoners would complain, "Yusuf, either cry in the day or cry at night. Your crying disturbs us where we can't sleep, we can't rest, Yusuf." The fourth of these criers is Binti Rasulullah. You see, Zahra was Hawra Insiya, the angelic being in human form. The weeping of Zahra was like the weeping of the Hawariyun, of the Hawar, of the angelic beings in heaven, that people could not stand the sound of her tears. That when she would cry, the people of Medina complained, "Oh Ali, tell Fatima to either cry in the day or cry at night. We find no rest." When Amir al-Mu'mineen hears this, he says to Zahra that they ask you either cry in the day or cry in the night. She says, "Oh Ali, tell them I am only their guest for a small period of time. Let me weep for my father." And she said, "The longer you are separated from a person, the more your weeping decreases, except for me, that my father was that person, that the longer I am separated from him, the more it makes me cry." The fifth of these criers was this Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen. His weeping was a lesson for humanity, that he would teach humanity about what happened to Abu Abdullah in Karbala. that when he would go to the market and he would go to the place of the qassab, of the ones who would slaughter animals, he would ask them, "Oh butcher, you're about to slaughter this sheep. Did you give it water before you were going to slaughter it?" They would turn and say, "Yabna Rasulullah, we are the followers of the religion of your grandfather. We never cut an animal before we give it water." Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen would turn to the direction of Karbala. "Baba, they treat the animals better than they treated you." Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen's weeping was such that he used to weep so much that eventually it said that Sayyidah Zainab asked Jabir, "Jabir, you are a companion of our grandfather Rasulullah. I see Ali ibn al-Hussein, because of his weeping, his life is in danger because of the excessiveness of his crying. Jabir, go and talk to Ali ibn al-Hussein. Tell him not to cry so much." Jabir comes to our fourth Imam and he says, "Yabna Rasulullah, qatlakum al-aada wa sharafakum al-shahada." Yabna Rasulullah, why do you cry? The habit of your house is to be killed, and the honor in the eyes of Allah is that you attain shahada. So why do you cry? Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen replies, "Jabir, it's true that our family is one that has been killed from the beginning. Our honor is to be shaheed, but it is not from our honors and from our dignity that our women should be paraded in the bazaar. It is not from our honor that my aunts should have been taken into the darbar in front of the mal'oon. Oh Jabir, when I close my eyes, I see my aunts and my sisters running in the desert of Karbala from the fires in the tents. Jabir, how is that our honor? Why should I not weep over the difficulties?" Another of the companions came and said, "Yabna Rasulullah, you have been crying for 35 years. Has it not been enough?" The Imam replies, he says, "Did you not see when Yaqub lost one son? He wept until he lost his sight. I have seen the bodies of 18 members of my family laid under the sun of Karbala without any kafan. Why would I stop my crying when I have seen what I have seen?" If you knew, those mal'oon to torture the Imam took him on the 11th of Muharram past the body of all of his loved ones. Imam Zain-Ul-Abideen, it's narrated on that day that Sayyidah Zainab says, "I looked at my nephew tied to the back of a camel, and I saw as if Zain-Ul-Abideen was going to die on the back of that camel. I said, 'Oh Sajjad, why do I see that your life is in danger?' He says, 'Oh Aunt Zainab, how unfortunate the son to see the body of his father trampled by horses, laying under the open sun, and no chance to bury him. How can I live through this experience?' That Zain-Ul-Abideen would weep for the Masa'ib of Abu Abdullah, would teach the people to cry for Imam Hussein, such that if that Imam would fast every day and pray every night, when he would open his fast every day, he would invite people to sit with him. Every time he would open his fast, the food would be placed in front of him. He would cry, 'Hi, how can Sajjad eat when my father was killed thirsty and hungry?' The message of Karbala became so spread and well known that Walid ibn Abdul Malik Mal'oon was forced to poison this Imam of mine. They describe that after 35 years of weeping, Walid had the Imam poisoned with such a severe poison that in some narrations my Imam suffered for days, and in other narrations my Imam was only alive for 1 day after this poison. So much pain was in his body that they said his moments of death, we saw Zain-Ul-Abideen, the sweat of death overcame his brow. His breathing became shallow. His eyes began to close. His hands would open and close from the severity of the pain of the poison. Until eventually it was that the soul of Ali ibn al-Hussein left this world. Ya ibn Rasulullah, ya Sayyid al-Sajideen.
Imam al-Baqir sat by your side. Your children accompanied you. They took your body to Baqi. They buried you next to your uncle. Wow, Hussein! Who in that moment that Imam Zaman writes in Ziyarat al-Nahiya, the sweat of death overtook the brow of Hussein ibn Ali. He closed his hands in the field of Karbala. وَجَالِسُ عَلَى صَدْرِهِ. Matem Hussein.
हाय मेरा मजलूम इमाम, 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 हाय मारा गया है तृष्णा का, हाय मारा गया है तृष्णा का, हाय मारा गया है तृष्णा का, हाय मेरा मजलूम इमाम, बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफी जान, बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफी जान, बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफी जान, बतलाइए ये कैसी क्या मेरे मुक़द्दर में था ये शाम का जिंदान, बतलाइए ये कैसी बतलाइए ये कैसी है फूफी जान, यहाँ खाक उड़ाती है जहाँ शाम से वहशत, हर सुबह टपकती है जहाँ बाम से वहशत, होगा इसी जिंदा में मेरे दफन का सामान, बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफी जान, बतलाइए ये कैसी अम्मा इसी गोशे में बना ना मेरी तुरबात, इसी गोशे में बना ना मेरी तुरबात, ना मेरी कब्र भी वीरान। बतलाइए ये कैसी अम्मा हो कहाँ कुछ भी दिखाई नहीं देता। हाथों को मेरे हाथ सुझाई नहीं देता। हाथों को मेरे हाथ सुझाई नहीं देता। ऐसा है अंधेरा के कता होते हैं आसान। बतलाइए ये कैसी बतलाइए ये कैसी वो शाम तमाचों भरी रुखसत हुई अम्मा। दामन जले गौहर छिने मुद्दत हुई अम्मा। पर आज तलक दर्द से दुखते हैं मेरे कान। असीरी है पुपीता बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है पुपीता। क्या मेरे मुक़द्दर में था ये शाम का जिंदान। बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है पुपीता। बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफीजा। सोचा था कि जिंदा से रिहा जब भी मैं हूँगी। सोचा था कि जिंदा से रिहा जब भी मैं हूँगी। जाऊँगी मदीने को मैं सुग़रा से मिलूंगी। जाऊंगी मदीने को मैं सुग़रा से मिलूंगी। लगता है मगर यहाँ से रिहाई नहीं आसान। बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफीजा। बतलाइए ये कैसी असीरी है फूफीजा। बतलाइए ये कैसी है फूफीजा। और पुरशोर नवेद उतना है जितना है ये सुनसान। शोर नवेद उतना है जितना है ये सुनसान। शोर नवेद उतना है जितना है ये सुनसान। एक कब्र के होते हुए ये शाम का जिंदान। आबाद का आबाद है रान का वीरान बतलाइए ये या हुसैन 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 या भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार
सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा लूट ली दस्तार मैंने अहमद मुख्तार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा लूट ली दस्तार मैंने अहमद मुख्तार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है एक मनादी शाम की गली यों में देता है सदा एक मनादी शाम की गली यों में देता है सदा रस्सियों में बेटियां है दरे करार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की एक मनादी शाम की गली यों में देता है सदा। एक मनादी शाम की गली यों में देता है सदा। रस्सियों में बेटियां है दरे करार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
सिर्फ 40 साल होंगे खून रोने के लिए, सिर्फ 40 साल होंगे खून रोने के लिए। उम्र भी कितनी बची थी आबिदे बीमार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। सिर्फ 40 साल हो गए खून रोने के लिए, सिर्फ 40 साल हो गए खून रोने के लिए। उम्र भी कितनी बची थी आबिदे बीमार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है
शाम के बाजार की।
सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के जुल्म से नीले हुए नीले से काले हो गए, जुल्म से नीले हुए नीले से काले हो गए। शाम तक रंगत बदलती ही रही रुखसार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
सांस ना रुक जाए यार काफिला सालार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है
शाम के बाजार की।
जुल्म से नीले हुए नीले से काले हो गए, जुल्म से नीले हुए नीले से काले हो गए। शाम तक रंगत बदलती ही रही रुखसार की, भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
भीड़ बढ़ती
जा रही है शाम के बाजार
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की।
सांस ना रुक जाए यार अब काफिला सालार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की हाँ भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा छीन के ज़ैनब की चादर शिमर ये कहता रहा लूट ली दस्तार मैंने अहमद मुख्तार की भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की
भीड़ बढ़ती जा रही है शाम के बाजार की। भीड़ बढ़ती या हुसैन 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 आबिद बीमारे रोज़ारे आबिद बीमारे रोज़ारे यादे होने में या हुसैन 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 आबिद बीमारे रोज़ारे आबिद बीमारे रोज़ारे यादे होने में या हुसैन 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 काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए 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 काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम तू शहंशाहे दर्द है, तू शहंशाहे दर्द है, बतला रही है शाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम। तू शहंशाहे दर्द है, तू शहंशाहे दर्द है, बतला रही है शाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, 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 रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम। चला बेकसों का कारवां, बीमार लोगों सारे बाहर, संग सरे हुरिया, शाहेला फतह की बेटियां, गरीबो बला के दश्त में, गरीबो बला के दश्त में, बरपा हुआ कोराम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम। चला बेकसों का कारवां, बीमार लोगों सारे बाहर, संग सरे हुरिया, शाहेला फतह की बेटियां, गरीबो बला के दश्त में, गरीबो बला के दश्त में, बरपा हुआ कोराम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, 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 रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम। ज़ैनब पुकारे बेवतन, भाई मेरा बेकफन, कर दे उसे कोई दफन, मेरे हाथों में बांधी रस्म, हाय कैसे सुना होगा, हाय कैसे सुना होगा, बीमार ने पैगाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, 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 रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम। मस्तूरों में के मर्द है, गैरों से चेहरा जर्द है, करबल की जमी गर्द है, ज़ैनब का दिल में दर्द है, रोता है सर झुका के, रोता है सर झुका के, करता नहीं कलाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम, रोने के लिए काफी है तेरा नाम रो मुश्किल थी बड़ी काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम मुश्किल थी बड़ी वो घड़ी दरबार में ज़ैनब खड़ी शबीर के लब पे चढ़ी सजाद ने पहली कड़ी दरबार यज़ीदी के दरबार यज़ीदी के लर्ज़े थे दरबार रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम तू शहंशाह दर्द है तू शहंशाह दर्द है बतला रही है शाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम मुश्किल बड़ी वो घड़ी दरबार में शबीर के लब पर चढ़ी सजाद ने पहली घड़ी दरबार यज़ीदी के दरबार यज़ीदी के दरबार रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा नाम रोने के लिए काफी है सजाद तेरा
अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आले मुहम्मद
सल्लल्लाहु अलैका या अबा अब्दुल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्न रसूलल्लाह अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्न अमीरुल मोमिनीन अस्सलामु अलैका व इब्न सय्यदिल वसीयीन अस्सलामु अलैका या इब्न फातिमत ज़हरा सय्यदत निसाइल आलमीन अस्सलामु अलैका व अलल अरवाह अल्लती हल्लत बफनाइक अलैका मिन्नी जमीअन सलामुल्लाह अबदा मा बक़ीत व बक़ियल लैल वन नहार वला जअलहुल्लाहु आखिरल अहद मिन्नी लज़ियारतिकुम अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन अली इब्न वअला औलादिल हुसैन वअला अस्सलामु अलैका या सय्यदी व मौलाई अली इब्न अल-हुसैन व मुहम्मद इब्न अली व जाफ़र इब्न मुहम्मद व मूसा इब्न जाफ़र अस्सलामु अलैका या गरीब अल-गुरबा अस्सलामु अलैका या मुइन अद-दुअफ़ा वल फ़ुक़रा अस्सुल्तान या अबल हसन या अली इब्न मूसा अय्युहर रिदा अस्सलामु अलैका या बीबी मासूमा फ़ातिमा अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहु अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाना या साहिबल अस्र व ज़मान अल अमान अल अमान अल अमान मिन फितनतिज़ ज़मान अस्सलामु अलैका या खलीफतुर रहमान अस्सलामु अलैका या मज़हरल ईमान अस्सलामु अलैका या इमामल इंस वल जान अज्जलल्लाहु तआला फरजक व सहलल्लाहु तआला मखरजक व ज़ुहूरक इंशाअल्लाह व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहु।
मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। या अल्लाह बिहक़ मोहम्मद व अंतल महमूद बिहक़ अली व अंतल आला बिहक़ फ़ातिमा व अंत फ़ातिर समावात वल अर्ज़ बिहक़ हसन व अंतल मोहसिन बिहक़ हुसैन व अंतल क़दीमतुल एहसान बिहक़ आइम्मतु तिस्सतुल मासूम बिज़ुर्रियतिल हुसैन अलैहिस्सलाम। या अल्लाह बिहक़ आले मोहम्मद के सदक़े से हमारी इस कलील इबादत को कबूल फरमा। जो हमारे कल साथ थे और आज नहीं हैं उनके दर्जात बुलंद फरमा। इमाम सज्जाद के सदक़े से जो भी हाजात लेके आया है तू ही वाकिफ़ है, सबकी नेक हाजात कबूल फरमा। A request for Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of the sponsors of tonight's majlis. 1 time Surah Hamd, 3 times Surah Tawheed for the marhumin of Hyderabad. And I have 2 names here, Sayyid Muhammad Bakir ibn Sayyid Raza Hussain Abdi and Sayyid Raza Hussain ibn Sayyid Nasir Hussain Abdi. Afzal Bhai Painter's Walid Sultan Ali as well, to remember his name.
Dum dum,
Ali Ali,
dum dum,
Ali Ali,
hey dum,
Ali Ali,
hey dum.
Ali Ali.
Labbaik ya Hussain,
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 labbaik ya Hussain.
Labbaik ya Hussain.
1 2 3 हुरमाला की साड़ी 3 पे लाना।
Ishman.
Dum dum,
Ali Ali,
dum dum,
Ali Ali,
her dum.
Ali